The woman who forgot how to smile until a child taught her again. The November rain fell in sheets against the law firm's floor-to-ceiling windows, blurring the city lights into watercolor streaks of amber and gold. Margaret Chen sat alone in her corner office on the 42nd floor, the soft glow of her desk lamp the only warmth in a room full of mahogany and leather. Outside, the world moved on without her. Inside, she moved through motions she'd perfected over 15 years, motions that no longer felt like living. She was 43, partner at Whitmore and Associates, respected, successful, empty. The documents before her swam together. Merger agreements, corporate restructuring, words that once excited her but now felt like dust in her mouth. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago. She didn't remember making it. The cream had separated, forming a thin film on the surface that caught the lamplight. Margaret's reflection in the dark window showed a woman in a perfectly pressed navy suit, hair pulled back in a flawless chignon, posture impeccable. She looked like someone who had everything figured out. She looked nothing like the girl who'd once believed law could change the world, who'd taken pro bono cases in underserved neighborhoods, who'd laughed easily and loved freely. That was before David, before the miscarriage, before the divorce papers she'd signed on a Tuesday morning that felt like every other Tuesday morning until suddenly it wasn't. 3 years had passed since then. 3 years of work. Only work. The office had become her cathedral, her prison, her refuge. She arrived before dawn and left after dark. Weekends meant silence in an apartment too large for one person. Rooms she no longer entered because they had been meant for a family that never came. Her phone buzzed. Another email she didn't want to read. The rain intensified, drumming against the windows like fingers trying to get in. She didn't notice when the office door opened. She didn't hear the small footsteps on the carpet. She only looked up when a voice, clear and gentle as a bell, spoke into the silence. "Excuse me. Are you the lawyer lady?" Margaret's breath caught. A girl stood in her doorway, perhaps 7 years old, with dark hair falling in damp waves around her face. She wore a purple raincoat that had seen better days, patched at one elbow, and she clutched a small notebook against her chest like a shield. Her eyes were the warmest brown Margaret had ever seen, full of something Margaret had forgotten. Hope, maybe. Or trust. Or simply the courage of someone too young to know when to be afraid. Yes, Margaret managed, setting down her pen. "How did you get up here?" The security man was sleeping. "I was very quiet." The girl took a tentative step inside. "My mama said you help people. Do you help people?" Something in Margaret's chest, a door she'd welded shut, trembled. "I'm a corporate attorney. I help businesses." "Oh." The girl's face fell, but only for a moment. Then that brightness returned. "But you're still a lawyer, right? That means you know about laws and rules and things." "I suppose so." "Where's your mother?" "Downstairs, in the lobby. She's sleeping a little bit." The girl moved closer, her sneakers leaving small wet prints on the carpet. "She works very hard and she gets really tired. We live near here now. Well, not in a house, but near here." Margaret understood before the girl said it. Homeless, living in a shelter, or their car, or one of the churches that opened their basements on cold nights. The girl's clothes were clean but worn. Her notebook was weathered, its edges soft from being held. "What's your name?" Margaret asked, her voice softer than it had been in years. "Luna. My mama named me that because she said I was her light in the darkness." Luna smiled, and it transformed everything. The dreary office, the cold November night, the hollow place in Margaret's chest. "What's yours?" "Margaret." "That's pretty. Can I sit down? I walked a lot today and my feet hurt." "Of course." Margaret gestured to the leather chair across from her desk. Luna climbed into it, her feet dangling well above the floor, and carefully opened her notebook. The pages were filled with crayon drawings, flowers, and rainbows. A house with smoke curling from its chimney, stick figures holding hands. "I drew these for when we get our apartment," Luna explained. "So I remember what I want it to look like. Mama says we will. She says she's going to save enough money from her job, and then we'll have our own place again." "What does your mother do?" She cleans offices, like this one, but in different buildings. She works 3 jobs. She's really strong. Luna traced one of her drawings with a small finger. But sometimes I worry about her. She coughs a lot. And she doesn't eat very much. She says I'm growing, so I need the food more. But I think mamas need to eat too. Don't you think so? The door Margaret had welded shut cracked open. I do think so. That's why I came to see you. Luna looked up, and her eyes held such clarity, such innocent wisdom, that Margaret felt something break and rebuild inside her all at once. Mama needs help. She won't ask for it because she's proud, but I can ask. I'm not proud yet. I'm just 7. What kind of help does she need? A job that doesn't make us so tired. And maybe someone to tell us about the rules for getting an apartment. Because the people at the office use really big words and Mama gets confused and then she cries in the bathroom. She thinks I don't know, but I hear her. Luna's voice didn't waver. She stated facts the way children do without understanding how they could shatter an adult's heart. I thought maybe you could use small words. You seem nice. You have kind eyes. Margaret hadn't cried in 3 years. Not at the miscarriage. Not signing the divorce papers. Not through any of the lonely nights or silent mornings. But now, looking at this child who'd walked into her office with nothing but courage and a notebook full of drawings, she felt her eyes burn. Luna! Wait here for just a moment. I need to make a phone call. She didn't ask herself why. She didn't question the impulse. For the first time in 3 years, Margaret acted on something that felt like instinct, like purpose, like the person she'd been, before life had taught her to be careful. She called building security, not to report an intruder, but to find Luna's mother. She called her assistant director of HR, waking her at home. She called her personal attorney, the one who handled wills and estates and had always told her she was too generous for her own good. Then she sat back down and looked at Luna. Really looked at her. And saw not a problem to be solved, but a person to be seen. A child who'd summoned courage she shouldn't have needed at 7 years old. A light in the darkness, just like her name. Luna, I'm going to help your mother. But first, I need you to do something for me. Okay? Luna leaned forward, eager. I need you to promise me something. When you and your mama have your apartments, and when things get better, and they will get better, I need you to promise that you'll remember this. That asking for help isn't weakness. That kindness exists. That there are people in the world who want to see you thrive. Margaret's voice caught. Can't you promise me that? Luna studied her with those ancient knowing eyes. Then she nodded. I promise. Can I promise you something too? Of course! When things get better, I'm going to draw you a picture. A really good one. Of you smiling. Because I think you forgot how. Luna tilted her head. But I think you're remembering now. I can see it. Margaret reached across the desk and took Luna's small hand in hers. The touch was electric, grounding, real. For 3 years she'd believed she was meant to be alone. That her purpose had died with the family she'd never have. But here was this child. This brave little light. Offering her something she'd forgotten existed. Connection. Purpose. The possibility that saving someone else might save yourself too. You're right, Margaret whispered. I am remembering. When Luna's mother arrived, a thin woman with exhausted eyes and an apology already forming on her lips, Margaret stood and saw herself as she'd been 3 years ago. Overwhelmed, carrying too much. Trying so hard to be strong that she'd forgotten to ask for help until it was too late. She didn't let history repeat itself. That night, Margaret didn't leave the office until Luna and her mother had a hotel room paid for, a job interview scheduled with the firm's facilities management director, and contact information for housing resources Margaret hadn't known existed until she'd made herself find them. She gave her personal number. She meant it when she said to call. 3 months later, Luna's mother, Maria, was working full-time at the firm with benefits. 6 months after that, they moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood with good schools. Margaret helped them move, carrying boxes up 3 flights of stairs, sweating and laughing, and feeling more alive than she had in years. She attended Luna's school concerts. She taught her to play chess. She became someone's emergency contact, someone's person to call, someone who showed up, not out of obligation, but because she wanted to. Because somewhere along the way, this little girl had given her back something she'd lost, the ability to feel, to care, to belong to something beyond work and silence. A year after that rainy November night, Margaret sat in her office. The same office, the same desk, the same windows now showing spring sunshine instead of winter rain. But everything was different. She'd cut back her hours. She'd taken on pro bono work again. She'd remembered why she'd become a lawyer in the first place. On her desk in a simple frame hung a picture Luna had drawn. It showed two figures holding hands, one tall, one small, beneath a sky full of stars and a moon bright enough to light the way. At the bottom, in Luna's careful printing, it read, "Margaret, thank you for seeing me." Margaret traced the frame with her finger. A smile, a real smile on her face. She thought she was alone. She thought her purpose had been buried with dreams that died. But Luna had taught her something the law books never could. That sometimes being saved means doing the saving. That family isn't just blood. That the people who change our lives often arrive when we least expect them, in forms we never imagine. Through her window the city spread out in all directions, full of stories she'd never know and lives she'd never touch. But she'd touched one. She'd been touched by one. And that was enough. That was everything. The rain had been falling the night Luna walked into her life. Now the sun was shining. And Margaret Chen, the woman who'd forgotten how to smile, was smiling again. Not because everything was perfect, not because pain didn't still live in the corners of her heart, but because she'd learned what Luna had always known, that light finds us in the darkness, that hope comes in small packages with damp hair and weathered notebooks, that sometimes the most profound gift we can give another person is to simply see them, and to let ourselves be seen in return.